who was able to actually do these things. And even today, I can't imagine anybody even attempting or aspiring to do some of these tricks. I think even the strongest and even the best of the strongmen of people like you would have somewhere that governor or that regulator preventing them from biting a nail in half with your teeth, right? So that's what, among all the other things that the Mighty Atom did, they basically, you know, after his death, that's it. We're never going to see the light of his like again, and so that makes him even more special, I would believe, to people like Slim, who knew him well, and people in this audience who saw him perform. That we also, those of us who actually may have seen him, we've seen an incredible, historic individual. Yeah.
Slim is actually, as far as I know, the last living link to a bygone era, quite literally. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, special in that regard too.
And not only the last, but probably the closest. That because of your close relationship, there was probably, to our knowledge, no other strongman who had a closer bond. And I mean, like Slim says constantly, I mean, his wife, who obviously he loved dearly, said that his only rival, her only rival was the Mighty Atom.
One thing I wanted to bring up, I do believe the champion Valenko was a wrestler, and that's what he had initially trained
As a wrestler,
Mighty
well,
Atom, and he was known as Kid Greenside,
yeah,
and that's how the teeth. The book says he was trained in his neck. He was biting the kitchen table. Put teeth on his
Amazing.
neck, and then put a piece of tin over that, and then his teeth started biting through that. From
yeah.
there.
I mean, these were not accidents. I mean, he worked up these acts over time, just like with the hair. You don't, you know, if you don't have hair, well, you'll never try it. But if you have hair, you're not going to put your, you know, try to pull a car with your hair. But again, he actually exercised his hair to make his follicles really strong, so that, you know, that he could aspire to come up with acts using his hair. Pretty amazing stuff. But you're right. Another thing about the champion Valenko, who he traveled on the circus with, was that during that period of time, more than today, wrestling was a big entertainment, and even in the United States. And so he studied on, you know, began on, you know, building his body, but also learning talents about wrestling. He also actually, as a young man, took a freighter from Galveston, probably right through the Panama Canal right after it opened, to Japan, to Yokohama, and got off the ship and stayed in Japan and studied under a jiu-jitsu master. Literally showed up at the master's at the school, didn't know a word of Japanese, and just made his presence felt, and the master accepted him. And so when he returned to the States, he was a master of Eastern martial arts to an extent that nobody at the time had even heard of in the United States, let alone mastered. So he had that advantage as well. So the wrestling, he had the strength that because of building his body, and he also was among the first Americans to learn martial arts. So, anybody else?
Question for Slim. How much did you have to exercise to keep yourself in shape to perform your acts?
None, I was breaking rock with a sledgehammer at the quarry all day.
After you retired.
He was in that garage.
How about
Yeah,
after you
very nice.
retired?
No, it's up here. If I say I can do it, I can do
You
it
can do it.
now. I don't need to practice.
Yeah. One thing that Slim made clear to me, and I'm 100% sure this was true of the Mighty Atom, is that in their heads, in their minds, they could not fail. It was like that movie from the Apollo 13. Failure is not an option. So for the Mighty Atom and for Slim, failure to perform their act was not an option in their heads. I mean, you could say it, but they knew in their minds, and Slim tells a story, he tells a story of when he did go to Madison Square Garden with the Mighty Atom, and they're in the back waiting to go on stage, on the main stage. Slim developed the case of stage fright, and that is he panicked like, I can't lift these hammers, which of course would have seriously impacted his career if he failed. But the Mighty Atom said, don't look at that head of that sledgehammer. Don't look there. Look there at the end.
Those two sticks, just
Yeah,
pick up
see
those two sticks.
Don't even say handle, sticks. Just pick up those sticks, which of course is what Slim did, and meant that he had no problems picking up the hammers. So also I'll point out that the bond between Slim and the Mighty Atom is reflected in the fact that when you saw that clip, you notice that Slim had a Star of David, a Magen David, on his shirt, and the Mighty Atom performed with that same star on all of his costumes. You know, many of the costumes would show a bare nipple on one side to kind of show his chest. Kind of, there was one costume made him look like Tarzan, or but on all his costumes he always had a Star of David on it. And this is, again, part of the link that Slim has continued between himself and the Mighty Atom. Anybody else who, saw him perform, saw the Mighty Atom perform at Zern's? Yeah.
When I saw him at Baumstown, I don't know how old I was, but I think I was fairly young. And I remember the wagon, that's what I think of it as, like a covered wagon sort of thing.
An old truck.
And he
The
would
truck.
stand in front of it with the posters and stuff, and he had like a drawing of the human body. And he would say, if you have a pain, there's a reason. And I was young enough to think, oh my God, do I have a pain? What's the reason? And that's my memory of it, it's real clear.
This is a man who never had really a formal education. Okay, I mean, forget college. I mean, high school. He never was formally educated outside of probably what happened when he was back in Poland. However, he probably knew more about human physiology than most doctors. And one thing that the Mighty Atom made clear is you are what you eat. And he was he never put in his body any products that he felt were unhealthy, meat products. He thought that white bread was death. Of course, this is back, 50, 60 years ago when everybody ate white bread. He also had a unique habit. He fasted 1 day a week, and his day was Wednesday. He would fast, he said, in order to cleanse the body. That you fast one day, that the body needs the kind of that cleansing. And that was, again, one day each week he would fast. Now, when he talked about food, he said that among all illnesses, you could trace it back basically to the food you eat, and that's one of the reasons why he marketed successfully his laxative, was because he thought that the body naturally would expel the waste, and that having a difficult time was not natural. And he felt that this is a part of the human anatomy and physiology that he tried to educate people about. That you eat right, you use healthy products at a time, of course, when most people were not using healthy products, and way ahead of his time in some of his ideas and theories about human health.
I think I watched a documentary of Smithsonian a few weeks back, and it pertained to that bird strike that brought the miracle in the huts. And they took feathers of the birds out of the jet blades, and this biologist, she was analyzing it, and from those feathers they could tell from their diet where those birds came from. But she said, you are what you eat minus what you excrete.
Yeah. That would have been the Mighty Atom slogan. So the performing towards the end of his life, and long after vaudeville, long after the circuit, his main interest was less in the performing and more in the sale of these products that he was creating, and he used performing to bring the people in. So they might not come to the back of the truck, if they just saw, the Medicine Man products there, but as he's talking, he's also bending bars. That kind of got people's attention. And so that's really how he marketed his products, did his performances, etc. So he, again, an incredible individual, and those people who are still around who remember him, it's a priceless memory. Yes.
My wife said that Adam was the only competition she had.
Well, anyway, I really appreciate the opportunity to tell this story. We are trying to come up with solutions to what we do with a lot of these priceless artifacts and pictures and posters and samples of things like the Mighty Adams hair that Slim has in his garage. So this is going to be a project we'll be working on. At this point, we're not sure what to do, but any ideas will be welcome. But it really is a real important part of our history here in the Pottstown area, because not only does Slim live here, but the Mighty Adams spent a lot of time in our area, and many people here still remember him. So thank you very much for your time.
Have another big hand for Larry. I thought that.